advert would be really useful for the network to find out a little bit more about the great work that the Environment Centre are doing, especially around healthy homes. And Helen did a presentation to our Friday Forum a couple of weeks ago, which is great. She's going to do that again today, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about tech and the work they do. And yeah, thank you very much for coming at such short notice, and I hope you enjoy the session. Enough out of me, I will pass over to Helen.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for inviting me, and I hope you find the topic today and our conversations after the sort of slides part of the session really helpful. Just to say, I won't be able to see if people have got hands raised or things like that, but happy if we want to store questions up to the end. But if there's anything really burning, Joe, do let me know, because I can't see individual screens. So just to say, yes, I'm Helen Farley from the Environment Centre. We're an independent environmental charity based in Southampton, but we operate across Hampshire. We've been around for 28 years, and we aim to support individuals, communities and organisations to reduce their carbon emissions, to improve air quality, to sort of live or lead more sustainable lives, but particularly also around helping people keep warm and well. So helping those that might be considered in or at risk of fuel poverty, sort of keep warm and well, particularly over the winter period. So today, from the, as you can see from the top of the slide there, it's a sort of overview of the situation that many households, and particularly low income and vulnerable households, are finding themselves in. Some support that's been provided by central government, and then to bring it a bit closer to home around the support that we can offer through the Southampton Healthy Home Service. So without further ado, I'll move the slide on, hopefully. And just to give a bit of context, where people have been saying fuel poverty or people struggling to pay their energy bills, just thought start with the sort of with the overview of what is fuel poverty, and sort of not focusing on government hard government statistics or figures and things like that, but just to say, well, what does that mean to the everyday person? And essentially it is around the inability of a household to keep their home at a warmth, an adequate level of warmth. And there are three key drivers of fuel poverty that will say from the diagram there. So firstly, low income, so those who have limited income to meet the cost of their energy, obviously is a key important one there. Increasing fuel prices, which are sort of a sort of bigger contributor at this point, and also around that home environment, a home that is less energy efficient, means the greater amount of energy is required to heat that home to that sort of comfortable temperature. And also under occupancy might also be a driver as well. What that may be where a sort of a traditional family home, and there may be only one person living in that, and so it's more expensive to heat a larger home if there are fewer people in that home. And so an inability to be able to heat your home to a comfortable temperature can have some significant impacts on people's health and well-being. So that can be sort of physical, mental, and also in terms of their social well-being, in terms of, you know, do they feel like they can leave the home? Would they have friends or family over to their own home? So it's so it can have a big impact. I've talked about this sort of concept of adequate level of warmth or adequate temperature, and just to touch on, well, what do we mean by that? So firstly, with the World Health Organization recommend that that a temperature, indoor temperature for sort of healthy, mobile occupants is around these sort of 18 to 21 degrees Celsius. So maybe about 18 in the bedroom, up to 21 in the living room. So if you think about that, that might be most people who can move around a bit so they can get their blood moving. They don't have particular conditions that mean they require additional heat, or mobility issues, which means they are sort of more sedentary in that home environment. So that 18 to 21 is generally the recommended temperatures. However, those that may be more vulnerable or have complex and chronic health conditions, potentially older residents, may require higher temperatures than that, potentially up to 24 degrees. So it's worth bearing that in mind, depending on who you're seeing and their personal circumstances. And from the thermometer there on the side, you can see that with a decrease of indoor temperature, as that sort of temperature drops, the sort of risk of significant health problems or exacerbation of existing conditions increases. So once you sort of drop below that sort of 15-degree mark or 16-degree mark, there's sort of general discomfort, and there might be risk of respiratory diseases. And as it drops further down there, the strain on your cardiovascular system around that 12-degree mark, and then beneath that, sort of that risk of hypothermia as it drops lower and lower. So that might already sort of spring to mind some residents or service users that you're seeing that have conditions such as COPD, chronic heart disease, asthma, and the cold indoor cold environment does have a significant negative impact on mental health. So those with severe mental health conditions are also affected by this, and also thinking about age-related or developmental related vulnerabilities. So older people, as I said before, people with long-term disabilities, or the very young, sort of those early year development, when people may spend more time at home, are particularly vulnerable to the impact of being in a cold home. So just to sort of have a review of what's been going on in terms of energy prices, and there's been sort of labels around energy price cap, energy price guarantee, and just we thought it'd be useful to have a simple graph here to show you what has been happening with the average energy bill from sort of January 2019, where the idea of the energy price cap was first introduced by the regulator, to where we find ourselves now, October, November 2022. So the price cap was brought in to sort of regulate overcharging and the charges and costs that are set by the energy suppliers, and had been reviewed and updated every 6 months since it was brought in January 2019. The idea being that there could be benefits for households shopping around, so comparing different tariffs from suppliers, looking at different tariffs within the supplier or across the number of suppliers that have licenses. However, due to the sharp and significant increase of costs, it's generally not advised or even possible to sort of switch tariff or supplier at the moment. So this the price cap offer, or the energy price guarantee offer, is more or less the only one available, and also likely to be the best offer at this point. So as of the 1st of October, where this energy price guarantee came into effect, it was setting the average bill, average annual bill, at £2,500. And that has been down to government intervention. However, from the graph, you can see there, if we look around this time last year to this time this year, even with this intervention, energy costs are pretty much double what they were a year ago. So many people who haven't necessarily struggled before in budgeting for their energy costs are feeling the strain. And those who may already have been struggling in the past or for many years are finding that even harder to meet the cost to be able to keep themselves warm at home. So with the use of the term sort of energy price cap or the energy price guarantee, it can be somewhat misleading, cause a bit of confusion amongst the general public. And just wanted to highlight what that means. And I suppose the other development has been that since the energy price guarantee announcement and sort of changes in the sort of policy direction, this guarantee support is going to be reviewed in April. So revised estimates of annual energy bills from next April 2023 is around £3,700. So we're not quite sure what's going to happen in the spring, but potentially these average costs may go up. So I was mentioning the price cap, this guarantee, what does it mean, and why the £2,500 kind of amount that has been shared widely might be a bit confusing and perhaps a little bit misleading for some people. So there has been a set price for the standing charge. So that is a fixed amount that a household will pay to have access to the network. And then there's also a fixed unit rate. So that's a pence per kilowatt hour. So there's a fixed amount for each unit of energy that is being used. And a combination of those two things sort of results in that total bill cost. So the advertised price of 2,500 refers to the average household, and but the reality is that your bill might depends on many things really. So as I put there, it could be the size of the home. If you have a bigger home, it may it's likely to require more energy to get up to the recommended temperatures. How energy efficient is your home? Is it able to keep that heat in, or is it lost through drafts, through uninsulated walls? I'll come back to that later. And the type of fuel that's used, how people in the home use the appliances, and also the payment method that is used. So those who are on sort of dual direct debit have generally have lower rates, unit rates than those that are on prepayment meters. So there is a cost difference. So lots of different things may influence the overall total bill. So we've heard from some of our service users that people who have traditionally paid less than 2,500, even with the changes, suddenly think they have to pay this. And some others, conversely, they think I can use as much energy as I want, and I'll only have to pay 2,500. So it's just worth a note of caution with this sort of understanding that, yeah, the unit rates might be fixed, but your bill will still depend on how much energy you are using. So just briefly wanted to highlight a few areas of financial support that are available to households to help them meet the cost of energy bills. Some are restricted and targeted to certain groups, and others may be sort of universal. Firstly, the warm home discount, which you may be familiar with, it's slightly different from previous years. The amount has gone up to £150, down from 140, up from £140. However, the eligibility criteria and the way it is being administered is somewhat different. So for those households that receive guaranteed pension credit, they remain eligible for the scheme and should be receive that automatically and be notified by their supplier that they're eligible, and they don't need to do anything, the money's coming. So that's very similar to previous years. The difference is with what was previously called the broader group, but is now being looked at and assessed in a different way. So there's data being shared and being analysed between energy suppliers and data from government to identify households that may receive means tested benefits, but also may have high estimated heating costs. So the supplier will be looking at the data that they have for their customers, and will be contacting their customers if they think they might be eligible, and if there's whether there's any action for the customer to take or not, and directing them to provide that information so they can confirm they're eligible and make that payment. And for some people, following this assessment of both, are they receiving means tested benefits, and are they assessed to be in a property that might have high heating costs, if they're considered not eligible or no longer eligible where they may have been previously, they won't receive communication. But we understand that there will be a helpline set up for people who are querying what may or may not have happened. So it's a bit of a different change, because some people previously received it had to apply each time every year, and some people who might have had it in the past may no longer have it, or may no longer receive it, shall I say. The second sort of area just to touch on briefly is around the sort of cost of living payments, which were sort of announced earlier in the year, and most of these have either been paid or in the process of being paid. So the council tax rebate back in sort of April to June, the £400 energy bill payments that had started in October, the pensioner payment, which will be added to the winter fuel payment that a household will receive, cost of living payment for those on means tested benefits, and most should have, I believe, should have had their second part of that funding. And then finally, the disability cost of living payment, which I believe is also should be mostly distributed at this point. However, a simple way for people to find out is to sort of go onto the government site and then search for cost of living support, which sets out the sort of national sort of cost of living payments that government have signed up for. Thirdly is the Household Support Fund. So that's grants that have been given from central government down to local government. And so local authorities are working to distribute funds to those most in need, can be in the form of food or fuel vouchers. So you may have either signposted residents to the local offer in Southampton, or perhaps you've made an agency referral in the past, but just to say the updated details for the Southampton offer are on the Southampton City Council website. So it's worth either pointing people in that direction or taking a look yourselves to see what's available. And fourthly, I just wanted to touch on that energy companies may be providing some additional support for struggling households, or there may be other sort of hardship funds or charitable or trust grants that are available. So firstly, if there are vulnerable households and they are struggling to pay and are on prepayment meters, so that's those who have to pay in advance, sort of it's a pay-as-you-go type approach to energy bills rather than monthly payments. And if they may provide sort of emergency top-ups for those in crisis and sort of disconnected from the network temporarily. However, they do have to be paid back by the customer. Secondarily, there's hardship funds there, so that sort of eligibility for that, how application process, etc. Does vary between suppliers, but it's worth highlighting to your service users that if they are struggling, first and foremost is always to try to reach their supplier and discuss what is going on, their struggles, whether there's any vulnerabilities in the household, because there may be some support that the supplier can offer. And then thirdly, energy trust grants. So those may be focused particularly on helping to reduce or write off fuel debt. However, any application must be done once a household has sought advice from a debt advice organisation. So they're regulated to provide debt advice. So it could be frontline debt advice, it could be citizens advice debt team, or any other sort of debt agency, not necessarily locally based. So I did also put a few slides in around what can you do if someone can't pay their energy bill. So I'm not sure if you're likely to have that level of engagement with somebody. So I can sort of work through these quite quickly. Joe, they went on my previous slides, but we've had used them in a different presentation for different sort of stakeholders. So what we tend to look at, what hope people you could ask of your service users is, do they think the bills are correct? We're having conversation with people who think their bills are wrong, and it's not necessarily that the bills are wrong, it's just the price. The price for using energy has gone up so much that that high cost from this time last year makes one think, oh, something's wrong here. It may not necessarily be. So check their meter readings against their bills. If they've got a concern, contact their energy supplier. They might qualify for extra support, or if they are particularly struggling, there are energy suppliers have to take into consideration a household's ability to pay, their vulnerability, etc. So that's why we're highlighting the priority services register, so that's a sort of defined list from the energy supplier, so they know this household is a vulnerable household and they may need extra support, and that should be taken in mind with any sort of debt repayment conversations, or conversations about struggling to sort of pay their bills or meet their monthly direct debit contributions. In some instances, energy suppliers might refer to a financial assistance sort of scheme that they have a direct relationship with. And then sorry, got ahead of myself on what should energy companies be doing when people are struggling to pay their bills. So firstly, as I said earlier, take into account their ability to pay or repay their debt. Are there different payment options? And there's been, I think, recently in the news around sort of prepayment meters, installing these, and concerns about whether that's right in every instance. They should only look to install prepayment meters where it's safe and reasonably practical to do so. So Ofgem are keeping a close eye on what's happening with suppliers at the moment and how they're treating their customers. But generally, our experience is customer service is an all-time low, unfortunately. So we understand it can be difficult and frustrating for vulnerable households, or any households, to contact their supplier when something is they're struggling or something's gone wrong. But to move on to something more positive, what we wanted to say was, well, one thing we can't have much impact on is the cost of energy itself. But what we can look to do is really think about, well, what positive steps can everyone take? And firstly, you called it there, take control of your energy use. So understanding what the kind of hierarchy of what contributes towards your energy bill. Understand and think about the way you live your life in your home, and what you can do to maybe stop wasting energy or getting the best out of your heating system. So as you see from the pyramid on the left hand side there, heating and hot water are the biggest contributors to the overall cost of your energy bill, which is why there's often conversation about rationing heat, delaying putting the heating on until November, turning off thermostats, radiator valves to only heat the rooms you're in, those kind of things. So firstly, we recommend people dust off the manuals, look at their heating controls that might be in a drawer, and actually sort of see what can be done to say what temperature do you set your heating system on, what times do you set them on. This is on the basis of a gas boiler central heating, but are there tweaks that you can make that sort of better suits your pattern? If you're out in it all day, you don't necessarily have your heating on. Thinking about timing it, maybe adjusting the thermostat down if you've normally have it at 21, drop it down a degree, see how you get on with that. Does that mean you just need to wear a jumper rather than having that temperature slightly higher? And then as you go up through the pyramid there, they have less impact on your overall energy bill, but there's still things that can be done. Leaving things on standby, lights on if you're not using them, having things charging overnight, even when they might only take 2 hours to charge, those kind of things. So that's why heating and hot water is one of the biggest areas that people are sort of concerned about, whether they can keep warm, but also that cost of using that heat in the home. And for those who do have smart meters, which is the top image there on the slide, it's that's the in-house display, which can help people look at, well, at any one time, what's the sort of daily cost of energy that they're using. Also, if there's sort of peaks, and they can sort of identify what's causing that kind of spike in energy use. So you put the kettle on, that really sets up the demand in terms of your electricity. So, and that can help with sort of identifying things that you might be able to switch off, or think about how you can sort of change your habits to do the best that we can with whatever resources that we have, and what's in our gift in terms of kind of behaviours and lifestyle. So once you've kind of hopefully got a better understanding and making the best out of your heating system, whether it's gas central heating or storage heaters, things like that. Another area is to say, with that cost to heat your home, pretty much double what it was last year. What we want to do is to try to avoid that heat loss. And firstly, there could be options for in terms of DIY. Could there be draft proofing, reflective radiator foil to sort of reflect that heat from radiators on external walls back into the room, sort of thermal curtains that sort of have that extra barrier from the cold coming from the windows at night, to try and keep that indoor space as warm as possible. Two sort of larger interventions there from wall, loft insulation, floor insulation, and a little diagram of the house on the left hand side just shows the sort of general the estimates of where heat is lost. So if you think about the home, most of the largest area of that home is the walls generally, and that's where about 35% of the heat is lost. So so there are sort of what we call energy efficiency measures that can help a home be able to be more efficient and therefore reduce that heat loss potential. And there'll be more about how that links to the Southampton Healthy Home Service in a minute. But with the sort of understanding that people may be underheating their home and potentially drastically limiting the time they heat their home, there is the concern around increasing issues with damp, mold and condensation. And if that sort of goes on for a long period of time and is a particularly sort of bad case of mold and damp, that can also affect your health. So I suppose it's just trying to highlight that there are significant impacts to somebody being in a cold home for long periods of time. So we are having conversations with people around trying to do the best that they can, and also how to manage that sort of damp condensation, which may be more directly linked to underheating the home than a sort of physical structural property issue. So yeah, we talk about heating the space, insulation and ventilation, reducing excess moisture, and how to do the best that you can to keep your indoor home environment healthy. That moves us nicely on to Southampton Healthy Homes, which is the City Council's affordable warmth service that we run on their behalf. Hopefully you may have heard of the Healthy Home Service. And we are trying to support we're trying to support those most at risk of living in a cold home. So at the beginning, thinking about the drivers of fuel poverty and those that are more vulnerable to the impacts of that cold home, those on low income with ill health or poor health, and particularly those that may have be vulnerable from an age point of view. Our service is available to any Southampton resident, but obviously we're trying to reach those who potentially the impact is potentially greatest for. We deliver our support through tailored information guidance and support either on the phone, via email, or some face-to-face, depending on how people can access our support. Our advice or guidance is free and impartial, but there may be contributions when we talk about sort of grant funding for heating insulation improvements, which I'll touch on in a moment. So we can help anyone within the council boundary area, any tenure, any age. We are happy to receive referrals from organisations like yourselves, or speak directly to residents, whichever is the best route in for them. And just to sort of highlight sort of 3 key areas that we we regularly focus on, but just highlighting the particular importance this winter. So firstly, what we're looking to do is to maximise uptake of grant funding for those important energy improvements in the home. So whilst there's a lot of focus on just being able to afford bills this winter, by improving that quality of your home, by reducing the energy demand to heat your home to an adequate temperature, will be a long-term solution to these problems, will impact the amount of energy that you use and therefore your energy bill for years to come. So that's why we want to highlight the importance of seeing if we're able to help households with that grants for work. And just to give an idea of what measures can be done, so heating upgrades, helping to replace broken heating, to put in potentially upgrade heating systems that can include low carbon options if that's something that households are interested in. Insulation, wall and loft insulation, if there are sort of cold hazards through due to sort of broken windows and doors, we can look at replacing those. Look at draft proofing options, and also solar panel options as well. So criteria for we are able to access national and discretionary local funding. So criteria varies for the different sort of funding schemes that we can access under the Healthy Homes offer. So didn't really want to spend too much time highlighting what that is, because that's our team's job. What we're here to just want to give the highlight of what we're looking to support: low income and vulnerable households, as hopefully you're more familiar with from the slides. And predominantly this is homeowners due to the sort of legal responsibilities for landlords to maintain and upgrade their properties from a social or council housing perspective. And also to a lesser degree we can support private tenants, as private landlords also have legal obligations to meet, and there's likely to be a landlord contribution for some of the work. And just in case somebody else, well, what do you mean by low income? It can be those on means tested benefits, but also households with an income under £31,000. That's not a hard and fast rule, but that's sort of broadly what we're looking at, and we do sometimes take savings into account. But really, if people are struggling, what we want to say is let's have a conversation about their individual circumstances, about their home, and see what we can, what the team can do to help sort of identify potential grant routes for them. See if confirm if they're eligible through the application process, and help them through that process from first contacting us to getting the works done, and hopefully be in a more comfortable and hopefully warmer home. Second area to help we can help with is around particularly around sort of energy bills or queries in terms of that they might have with dealing with their suppliers. So just put some bullet points there on what in particular we can assist with. So hopefully, if people are able to persevere, if they're struggling and having some difficulties, first port of call is always the supplier. However, we know they're not the easiest to deal with, and particularly for some households, they need extra support in communicating effectively. So we're able to sort of help look at the bills and see that they're based on usage and not identify if there's anything strange that might be going on with what's sort of contributing to their bills. If they disputing if they're inaccurate bills or meter readings, and having those conversations with the supplier, with the client or on the client's behalf, resolving if there are any issues with meters, and it says they're helping kind of supporting the client if they're looking to make a complaint either to the supplier directly or up to the ombudsman if it's for a serious unresolved issue. And if it's linked to sort of fuel debt or other debts, we seek support from one of our from a regulated advice agency who's able to provide that. So that can be from our Advice in Southampton partners, Citizens Advice, or if we're working with, could be working with the council's welfare rights money advice team as well. We keep up to date with Ofgem communications and licensing condition information. So yeah, we are keeping an eye on what Ofgem are doing, and Ofgem are there to step in and to investigate. And we know there's been a couple of strongly worded letters and statements have been issued around how suppliers are treating their customers currently. And then sort of moving away from that energy and measures to improve that sort of heating and insulation in the home, we can also help residents sort of link into other wider services. So we are a member of the Advice in Southampton providers, and we work closely with Citizens Advice, who can help with sort of benefits budgeting and debt support and other advice areas that Citizens Advice cover. We can also help look at sort of other utility discounts, such as from water companies, help people to apply for the Priority Services Register. So that's really important if people are struggling and they're vulnerable. So with conversations about potential blackouts, with conversations about our supplies really asking if households are vulnerable or not, it's we really encourage as many people who could be eligible to join that register, which only takes, doesn't take very long to complete online, assuming they have access and are able to complete that online. Otherwise, we can help. But also signposting, referring to other services for sort of wider sort of independent, healthy living services. So it could be around home safety, fire security, or improvement. So handy person service, links to the council's disabled facilities grants team, Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service, or Blue Lamp Trust, other charitable organisations. So it could be those who might be a carer looking for support and access to services that support carers that live in the city, and also we're able to sort of link through to sort of food bank and utility voucher support for those in crisis, like I'm sure you can do directly as well, like many other key advice and frontline agencies in the city. And I suppose really that sort of takes me to the end point of how do people get in touch? How can your teams make a referral? We have a free phone advice line there, staff Monday to Friday 9 to 5, apart from bank holidays and our Christmas closure days. We have a dedicated email account. I'm sorry you can't see it because it's hyperlinked there, but we have a link on our website. And for those of you that are signed up for ReferNet, and I'm not sure if the social prescribers are yet, Joe, but I know the Solinked team are through ReferNet. So that's a secure referral portal that the Advice in Southampton partners use, and a number of external organisations have signed up to, making that referral process easier and secure. And that's what we use ourselves if we are supporting a household and then see and there's a potential for another agency to support them. With their consent, we make that referral there, so it sort of makes it a more streamlined customer journey for them. So I think that's it from the slides, and happy to sort of open it up to a wider discussion. And I understand that you might be representing your team and your entire team might not be here. So yeah, we are happy to do a sort of a condensed briefing about the Healthy Home Service in more detail for your teams at your convenience, if you don't feel it's covered in this sort of slides that I've gone through today, or just if you feel that's useful to have your team there and have that sort of, you know, in person, either online or in person. Thanks.